Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. On behalf of the McGovern Center for the Humanities and Ethics, we're honored to welcome you to today's session of the Arts and Resiliency Lecture Series. This series explores how artistic practice supports healing, reflection, and human connection, especially in times of challenge and transformation. It's our pleasure to introduce today's guest lecturer, artist Laura Spector. Laura Spector is a Houston-based artist and artist instructor. Her work has been exhibited nationally and internationally. She is best known for her acclaimed Museum Anatomy project, which began in 1996, where she collaborated with museum curators in 16 countries, searching for hidden, stolen, lost, and destroyed paintings, which she reimagined in paint, photography, and sculpture. Among Spector's honors are a residency from the Joan Mitchell Center, a fellowship from the New York Foundation for the Arts, 2 individual grants from the Houston Arts Alliance, the Sovereign Asian Art Prize, and an artist in residence at the Atelier Haus Hildmann, Germany. Spector was recently an artist in residence at the Joan Mitchell Foundation. In addition to her studio practice, Spector is the resident artist at the McGovern Center's Medical School's Humanities and Ethics Department. She currently has a solo exhibition at the Young Center of Houston in fall of 2025, and she will have a solo exhibition at the Holocaust Museum in Houston in late 2026. We're grateful to have her with us today, and we're so glad that you'll be part of this conversation. And now I'll hand it over to Ms. Spector.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. Alejandro mentioned my museum anatomy work, but I'm actually not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about a current show that I have up at the Jung Center. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I have a show up right now called Personal Stories, and it's a long journey to get to this exhibition. And I'm going to share with you how I got there and how it developed. Just to let you know, I do have an in-person artist talk this coming Saturday, the 25th, at the Jung Center in Houston, which is in Montrose. And it's from 2 to 3:30 p.m. And you are very welcome to attend. Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about 2 different series. The way that the exhibition is laid out at the Jung Center is that I have, when you walk in, I have some drawings, and then to a room to the side, I have what I call my maximalist paintings. And these are kind of my brain scatter. There are all these very elaborate, layered paintings that took place alongside these very clean paintings that look a bit more like advertisements that I call personal stories. So there's kind of like 3 exhibitions going on simultaneously, but I also really love sharing how I work because I'm also an art instructor. So to me, it's important to share with people who are visiting art exhibitions to show the backside. So it's not the smoke and mirrors of this perfect exhibition that's very curated, but instead it shows all of the work and the progress and the side projects that go on while making that final body of work. So this starts way back when at a miniature golf course that I was commissioned to create. It was an 18-hole golf course in northern Thailand, in a place called Chiang Mai. I lived there for 10 years, and at a certain point, I was preparing to move, and I got called in by an architecture firm out of Amsterdam. And they asked if I was able to lead a team to create a group of sculptures and paintings that would be in a golf course, an 18-hole golf course with an around the world theme. So you can see here on the left, there's Australia, and the kangaroo's pouch is where the ball gets hit into. And then on the right-hand side is Holland, and the windmill moves. So that's on, it actually turns, and you hit the ball into the bottom of the windmill. So I created this with a collaborator and a group of 5 people, 5 hill tribe people from the Lisu Hill tribe. And it took us about 8 months to do it. Here's some other holes. There's kind of a general Africa at the top, not one country, but you've got the giraffes, and then you've got Egypt on the right-hand side. Then there's Mexico, New York City. I have to say, America got 3 holes. That wasn't my particular plan, that was their choice. But I've got New York City, all the buildings lit up at night. And then the 9 hole was Las Vegas. It was a very loud hole. Needless to say, I got very good at putt putt. And when I started working with Hill Tribe people in Thailand, they didn't really know what a level was. So we were putting water into these clear tubes and watching where the bubble would go in order to make all of these holes level. It's quite an adventure. There's the Taj Mahal, which also lit up. That was one of the coolest ones. So together there were about 57 sculptures, which is pretty approximate, that pretty exact actually, 57 sculptures, and it had 248 feet of bendable luan, and everything was removable. So the French hole, this is where the story begins. Um, we were commissioned to create a hole for France, and we didn't know what to do, but I'd always been drawn to these posters because they're very colorful and beautiful, and there's something very painterly about them. And if you know the stories behind some of them are a little bit subversive, and it kind of makes it even more wonderful that they're so fun to understand what's going on behind the scenes. So I really love these and decided this is what we want for the bendable Luan part, the mural part of France. So here you can see the Chat Noir, the black cat, and this is a giant panel on the left-hand side, and that's the painting versus the actual panel on the actual photo or print of the original on the right-hand side. This was a print to this was in celebration of the leftist revolutionaries that took place in Montmartre. They would have their kind of revolutionary meetings there. And you can see at the top, the halo around the cat, it has the text up there, the Montmartre. And this was kind of this very subversive poster that most people don't know the background behind, but they were this leftist kind of communist leaning group that were meeting in private during the turn of the century, the last century. So I thought that was kind of funny that this has become such a huge part of everyday visuals, but most people don't know where this comes from. So it kind of had me wondering what kind of symbolism can be found in these poster series. So these are the paintings. They're exact copies of original posters. I love that little green devil person on the left-hand side. And the other thing that drew me to these was how playful they could be and also how elegant and painterly they could be, like the second one from the left. It's just very painterly and beautiful. There's a landscape in it, or how very direct they could be. So you'll see my work is definitely leaning on these works of art, and I even bring the French language forward in my contemporary work. So after the miniature golf course was completed, my collaborator at the time and I started creating these works of art that were kind of turned into our diaries. And we were painting our poster series because then we went to panels. And these are about 28 inches tall by about 22 inches wide, thereabouts. Some of them differ, like the Khao Soi Cowboy in the middle is a little bit different. So Chocolate Chiang Mai, it was an advertisement, and it was kind of blending an existing poster with text from where we were. Khao Soi is a northern Thai dish. It's very delicious. If you ever go to a Thai restaurant that serves it, I highly recommend it. This is a really poor photograph because digital photography didn't exist back when I started these. But there's a noodle that comes out of the bowl and it makes a cowboy. And then on the right-hand side, I had been to Shanghai. And so this was kind of my ode to Shanghai, Shanghai Palace. Deep Sea Dim Sum was after a visit to Singapore, and Emperor's New Tea. Also, he's holding a teacup with a ginseng. And ginseng, if you've ever seen it in person, they look like little people. They're very beautiful looking, and they usually come in these clear glass bottles that are in liquid, and the ginseng just kind of hangs out. But the way that it grows, they look very human-like. So I wanted to make a painting of that. And it ended up becoming an album cover, which is great. So music, an album that is also titled Emperor's New Tea. The Yum Cha Dragon that came after a visit to Hong Kong. And then this one is more of a personal one. So I've had many, many jobs as I've traveled around the world. At a certain point, I lost track of how many times I've moved. I had counted at one point when I moved to Austin, I think I counted 65 different moves. And that was every time I had lived a place for 6 months or longer, and then I moved, I counted that as a move. So I had at that point up to 65 moves. So I'm was constantly reinventing myself and finding work wherever I was. So in Thailand, before I had a full running artist studio, I had taught English. I taught yoga. So this is me teaching a yoga class on the roof of a building. And I had international students and I taught yoga twice a day for 6 days a week for maybe like 5 or 6 years. It's a long stint. Um, but during that time, I met a lot of travelers and they would come into my classes and they would still reek of alcohol from the night before partying. And they would come to my class to kind of dry out. And so I got this idea of doing sadhu and guru because they were very much there to kind of find their spirituality, find themselves. And I thought that this would be like kind of a funny foray into more of my humorous or more subversive works of art. So that's where these two come from. Lana Spa, Northern Thailand is also referred to as Lana or the Kingdom of Lana, Northern Thailand. And then after going to the Autumn Festival in Singapore, I came up with the Space Girl Mooncake and then Man on the Mooncake. And Man on the Mooncake came about because I knew I was moving to Texas and I've always been really interested in NASA. And I thought, oh, well, that's a really cool juxtaposition. So that's where that came from. Um, I moved to Austin when I first came to Texas, and Shiva Sativa came as a result of that. That was like kind of when the 420 culture, they had a 420 parade there. They had all of these, I think they were legalizing within other states marijuana. And so that's where that came from, and chronic rider as well. Um, and then in the center of that, lucidity, I had visited Tibet, the foothills of Tibet, which is considered Shangri-La, and came back with this idea to do a tea series. And this is where the center image came from. It's one of my favorites. And it says at the top of it, in case you can't read it, a transcendental blend of the finest Himalayan teas. And I have this whole little series of just tea paintings, which is real fun. Lone Star Libations, obviously, this is done in Texas. And at that time, I started taking a turn into more classical artwork alongside because I felt like I was becoming a little bit limited with these poster paintings. They're super fun, but I felt like something was missing in my painting process. Like I needed to express something that had more brushwork in it. It was a little bit more engaging for me to play with, a little bit less specific because you can see everything in the poster series is very specific and outlined, almost illustrative. So I wanted something that had a little bit more movement in it. And I found a mentor that I kept online. I had him online for about a year. His name's Tad Spurgeon. And I learned a tremendous amount about oil painting with him. I studied in Bruges and an atelier in Belgium and came back and continued teaching and painting. Alongside all of that, I started art immersion courses where I would take a group of students, and I still do this. We just got back from Prague, but I'll take them overseas and we will immerse in the culture. We'll go to museums, parks, all kinds of different events. And throughout, they are painting and drawing, and so am I. So these are some from around the world. The one on the bottom right is from Chicago. That becomes more interesting in a moment. On the left-hand side, these are different drawings that I've done at museums. I really love going to museums, even here in Houston, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston. I used to go on a weekly basis and just draw as many of the paintings as I possibly could. And your drawing gets really good after a while. On the right-hand side, alongside all of this, I'm starting to develop these liquid charcoal drawings. And while I'm developing them in my personal study, I'm also teaching how to use it with my students because I learn a tremendous amount from my students. And so these are kind of characters that I was trying on to see if I could use them in my poster paintings. So the drawings are never just drawings. I'm always kind of thinking, how can I use them? Now, Chicago comes back because all of a sudden I found this style of painting called cloisonnism. And this might sound familiar if you know about jewelry. Cloisonné jewelry is an enamel jewelry, and it's around the same time it becomes very popular as these paintings. So it's a post-impressionist painting style. It lasted a very short amount of time, and it comes out of France. Louis Anquetin is the kind of the father of this movement. And you can see the painting on the right-hand side kind of is similar to Van Gogh and his inspiration. So he's also around this time period, a little bit later, and he's looking at these works of art as he's developing his own. I love them because they marry the two. They marry painting, this kind of more like oil painting, loose brushwork, along with the structure of my poster paintings. So, of course, I was like, let's go with our art immersion to Chicago so I can see these in person. So, slightly a selfish motivation, but I think everybody enjoyed it. Here's a couple of more. So you can see, especially on the left-hand side, there's like these outlines. So it's kind of containing this very painterly work. And then there's also these repetitive patterns going on. So you can see in her skirt, there's, almost these little birds, these origami birds all over her skirt. Her in the jacket, there's a scarf and it has a repeated pattern. Even the background of the flowers have this repeated pattern. And the same with the background landscape of the yellow Christ on the right-hand side. So I'm becoming more and more interested in this patterning and how to integrate painting with poster series. So this was kind of a test run. This was a painting that had come out of being copywritten. Um, it was public domain. And I was like, let me just see what I can put together. And this ended up without any text on it. I just love this painting. And it was kind of my foray into my newer work. At the same time, we were in lockdown for COVID, and I was walking around my neighborhood and I would paint my neighborhood. So I painted so many homes. If you have a home in the Montrose area, I may have painted your home. This is like an apartment building at Mandel at the bridge, the 59th bridge. And the person who lived in this place several years ago saw this painting and she's like, I used to live there. And then she bought it, which was great. But this is where my maximalist painting started taking place because it felt like there was not a stillness during COVID. Everything was really quiet, it felt like, unless you went on social media. But out and about in the world felt very quiet. But inside, I just felt very restless. And so I started trying to figure out how I could bring that into these quiet spaces and merge those two things. Um, then, beginning of COVID, both of my parents died. They died like 6 months apart from one another. These are my last photos with my parents individually. And so when I was clearing out my parents' home, I found this cabinet in the garage filled with all these really old photos. And this was a photo of me in like kindergarten or preschool, right in the center in the blue pinafore dress. And I decided I'm going to try and paint that in the style of this kind of maximalist painting with these repetitive patterns. And so this was kind of the beginning of that. And I'll show you kind of where it turned into. It turned into this painting, Me, Meet Me, and Me. This painting you can see in the bottom dates from 2019 to 2024. And I had started it in 2019. When I was in Thailand, I met this guy from Australia who specialized in Ericksonian therapy. And he was really big into hypnosis. And he offered to do hypnosis with me. And I was like, well, if I don't have to talk, okay, let's try it. I just want to see what it's like. And he brought me into this meditation where I sat first of all, I was in a room. There was a room with a table and a door. The door opened and I was going to come in, but it wasn't me. It was my nervous system. So my nervous system comes in and sits down at the table and I'm observing the nervous system. Then my brain comes in and sits down at the table. And then my skeleton comes in, my muscular structure comes in, My heart comes in, and then finally my godlike person comes in. So my soul or my spirit comes in and sits at the end of the table, and then they communicate. So I couldn't get this image out of my mind. It was so visual. So I carried it with me for a very long time. And then I wrote him in 2019 and asked him if he would re record this for me. And he was like, sure. So he re recorded it. And I listened to it as I was sketching this out and painting it. And it had a lot to do with Thailand. We met in Thailand. This took place in Thailand. And Thailand's a very spiritual place for me. I really love it there. The Thai restaurant that I go to have these red flags hanging from the ceiling. So that's where those came from. And then Loy Krathong is a time where you send your wishes up to the sky and you float out your kind of your bad mojo from the previous year onto these little flower floats. Well, I put that onto the table, but it didn't make sense. And as time progressed, the meaning of this progressed. And I had a large birthday, and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to make a birthday cake. But then I didn't want it to be a birthday cake. And I changed it to the Tower of Babel. So that's what it's, a birthday cake on the Tower of Babel. And I feel like it definitely captures the chaos within the meditation. So it's this dichotomy and holding two things at the same time, which is something that I think a lot of us do, if not all of us, try to do on a daily basis, whether we want to or not. I continued with my maximalist painting. Here's two bellhops in Berlin. And this is, you can see the last one that I showed you is kind of where I'm at now with it. This is early on. So you can see it's just starting to break the boundaries of what normal traditional painting would be like, you know, breaking out this kind of boxes on the left-hand side that show the color palette. And then Whippets and Legs in Berlin. So I got back from Berlin and continued working. I love flowers. I love painting flowers. And when I was in Berlin, there were all these whippets. I don't know why everyone was walking around with whippets. And there was a person walking in these black boots that I loved. They were super cool. So I kind of combined these whippets with her boots. Okay, then I'm starting to build. After my parents die, I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a series of poster paintings that feel like me, that feel like where I'm at now. I want to kind of show my personal interior as an advertisement to the exterior. But I still need a layer of protection from the world so they don't know everything that's going on. And I also wanted it to be more universal. So I decided to title these kind of ambiguous titles that might resonate with other people. And this is how I built this painting, by the way. I build them in different ways. It just kind of depends on the day and how I'm feeling. So I started with a circle in the middle and I built up this person's character. And as I was building up, I got to that second panel. I oftentimes build up my paintings with white paint to get that, because it's an acrylic, to get some opacity. And I really like this character in black and white. And by the time I got to that point, I was, wow, I really relate with this character. And I feel like, in a way, I'm painting my self portrait. So I kind of consider this guy, I don't know why, I just consider this person my self portrait. And here he is with this clown nose, and he's with this flowers. And in the background, you can see here, there is a bomber jet flying overhead, dropping bombs in the background. So it's, you know, putting on his face and, you know, just trying to get through it, trying to get through it all. And so this is absurd. And then this one is relax. So I always give the translation of the title in case you don't speak French. And when my parents had died, my mom had died, my dad was still alive. I got a lot of people trying to give me really helpful advice. And the main thing that they kept telling me was to relax. You just need to relax, relax. And I didn't know what that meant, because how do you relax when you're going through so much grief and you're in a panic because you don't know what to do with your parent, or there's other circumstances happening. My parents were both in North Carolina. I'm in Texas. When my mom died, I moved my dad to St. Louis to be closer to me and he could be near family. And then COVID lockdown happened, so I could never visit him. And so it was really impossible to relax. So I have a fear, like an incredible fear of moths. I really do not like them. And if you are around me when I see a moth, essentially what I do is scream really loud, run to the closest door and slam it. And so I decided to put myself, or like this character, this is not myself, but a character in front of moths, which also look really beautiful. So it's kind of like figuring out how to make something really difficult, also really appealing and attractive, because that's how I'm at the time trying to deal with my grief. And to relax, it's like, well, maybe she just needs to take off her skin. I mean, what do you do in that circumstance? So that's where that came from. This is a little bit on a lighter note. I started drawing a lot of flowers. I really love vanitas paintings, those 17th century Flemish paintings that everyone ignores in museums, which also carry a tremendous amount of symbolism. A lot of them are kind of joking toward the fact that, you know, we're all going to die, you can't take it with you, and they'll show all the luxuries of life, but the joke's on us because, you know, time's ticking. And so I drew a lot of these florals. And then this is a photograph of a friend of mine in Thailand. I had a Halloween party and she showed up like this. And I took a photo of her because I loved it. And I always knew that I wanted to create that into a painting. And so I wanted to share my process of how I build up a painting. So you can kind of see this is different from the absurd one in that I'm starting with the yellow background and then I draw on it with a pastel, like a chalk pastel. And then I start painting the surface. So not all of this is starting with white. Some of them change. And you can see the little details in there until it finishes. The painting finishes completely, and then I determine what I'm going to title it. And in this case, the title is The Earth Laughs and Flowers. And I thought it was really hopeful. And at the same time, she's smoking a cigarette. But the cigarette's really beautiful too. So, you know, it's all of it combined and again, holding both things at the same time. Okay, and then going into back to my maximalist painting, here's Magpie and Flowers. Now I'm starting to add this outline, as you saw in the cloisonnism, to the bird. See the bird in the bottom left, the magpie. I love magpies. I think they're really cool. When I was in Europe, there was a warning out in Belgium for people to close their windows because the magpies were flying into people's homes and they would find the jewelry. If anyone left jewelry out, and they would steal the jewelry and fly out and drop it into fields like to create nests, or they would deliver it to other people's homes. So they're just really interesting birds. I think they're kind of funny in a sense. I mean, not I wouldn't want that to happen to me or anyone that I, you know, knew, or anyone really, but I, you know, it is kind of funny that birds do that. And then at the same time, I start getting really interested in AI and Midjourney and ChatGPT. ChatGPT hadn't come out yet, but I got into Midjourney. None of this is created with Midjourney at all. This is just me layering and stenciling and building out this painting. But I really love that one stripe in it started looking like a portal into this other world, into almost a digitized world. And so that's where this is coming from. Miracle of Chemistry. At the same time, I 2 weeks 2 weeks before, when was it? Sorry, I think it was at my mom's funeral. No, my dad's funeral. My dad's funeral. 2 weeks before my dad's funeral, I had a major surgery. And so that's where the Miracle of Chemistry came from. I just had a, I went to my dad's funeral on Zoom on my kitchen table because I still couldn't go to St. Louis. They were thinking about shutting down the border between Texas and being able to go into Missouri. So I wasn't able to travel, and I was recovering from a major surgery, and I had all these pills lined up behind my iPad where I was watching my dad's funeral, and that's where the Miracle of Chemistry came in. Therapy goes without saying. I was doing a lot of therapy, highly recommended, especially when going through a lot of grief. That was very helpful. And I found that with therapy, as I'm like trudging through and breaking new ground, I continually have to go back and revisit old stuff because sometimes it pops up again. And so it's always a process. It's never like, oh, you're done. So this was kind of an ode to that. Ephemeral, this is a blowfly, which I think is disgusting. And the hardest part of me overcoming my parents' deaths, one of the hardest parts, was thinking about what happens to the body when it dies. And one of the very first things that happens is blowflies can come into the body from 10 miles away and they start burrowing. And so I had a really hard time dealing with this visual conceptually. And I thought, well, I'm going to face it. So I used the image of a blowfly and I wanted to make it beautiful. How do I make this disgusting animal beautiful? And so I thought, well, I'll change its wings to stained glass. And so this is a stained glass panel from St. Vitus Cathedral in Prague, which I recently got to visit again. So I painted this years ago, or a couple of years ago, versus seeing this stained glass last year. I lived in Prague for a couple of years, 96 to 98. And I remembered that cathedral and it had a profound effect on me. So I was able to find images of the stained glass, and that's what I fused together to create Ephemeral. The system, this was all the political bantering and bickering between everyone and both sides. And so I thought, well, I'll create this little character who kind of controls everything. And you've got like the blue side whispering, blowing into his ear on one side, and the red side blowing into the other side. And it was just kind of a funny way to deal with all of the anxiety. And he's spinning the world. And his rings, I have details of them because they are all really specific rings. You may have heard that there was a huge heist at the Louvre last week. They stole a lot of jewels. Jewels have a lot of meaning. And so, it was really problematic that just happened. But these jewels in here, there's a coronation ring of the Pope. There's a coronation ring. Oh, wait, it's the Pope's ring. Coronation of the King. Solomon's ring, which is the oldest ring in existence. On the bottom picture, the inset picture, the one that looks like a Mogan David or a Star of David, that's actually Solomon's ring. So they're all different rings of leaders. And that's the system. I had a friend for a brief period of time. His name was Uldrich Kulhanek. When I lived in Prague, he came to my opening where I was censored. That's another story entirely. But he was a dissident, which meant that he was arrested during the communist regime and he served time. He was in prison for quite a while, and he shared a cell with Václav Havel, who was the prime minister after he got out of prison and after the revolution. He served as prime minister. He was also a playwright. So they were good friends. And Uldrich created the money, the currency that is currently being used in the Czech Republic. And so he was really excellent, incredible draftsman. And he also created all of these different prints. And these had a real impact in me. These are on me. These are different leaders from that time period, and he's turned them into pigs. And then he has a whole series of clown noses, like the million crown bill in the center, which is a joke bill. And he's got coins in his mouth, and he's got the clown nose off to the side. So this has always had an impact, and it's always been in the back of my mind. And this is my poster painting that I created called The Storytellers. And in it are several presidents. I think most of the presidents since I've been alive are represented here at key moments in their presidencies where they are saying something very important that would go down in history. And what I've done is I have removed their faces. But if you were to put their faces back in the pictures, they align perfectly with clown noses. So this is very bipartisan, P.S. It's all of them. And there are little angels in the corners, little putti characters in the corners dropping coins. And then behind them is a nuclear weapon going off. Now, I want to let you know, I had always planned to create Elon Musk's rocket as on the podium as the presidential seal, but I did not know that when I walked away after painting it, I stepped away about 10, 12 feet and turned around, and I just started laughing. Like I just completely lost it because I didn't realize how well it was going to line up with everything. So that was completely accidental, but still kind of perfect. Um, the world. So the image in the background is from East Texas. They had all these fires, and a friend of mine posted a picture that she had taken of the fires. And I asked her if I could use that for a painting. And I kind of feel like the world, we are all this cat right now, just trying to like swim away from the fires. This is what it feels like oftentimes, especially maybe in the world of social media. If you're lucky and you don't exist in social media at all, maybe you don't feel this. But I feel like this is kind of what the world feels like to me right now, and has for a couple of years. But I do love that cat. And I do feel like it's hopeful. Again, it's like two things at once because he's able to swim away from it. And he's getting there. He doesn't look very happy, but he's getting there. He's getting to the other side. So then this is right before Christmas, December 2022. Somebody had a dispute with an artist in the studio, and they went in and gasoline bombed the studio building where I have my studio. So I lost a tremendous amount of artwork, and it was a complete mess. It was a nightmare. And so throughout Christmas, here I am on Christmas Eve, starting the process of cleaning my studio. My studio was at the end of the blast site, and I had an exhaust fan above my door. So the blast went through the exhaust fan, hit the back of my studio, and landed all over my studio. So it really was stinky, and all my work was covered. A lot of my work had to be thrown out. All my materials had to be thrown out. Anything that was metal immediately turned to rust. So all my tools had to be thrown out, tables, everything, you name it. And then they gutted the building. But this is giving you an idea. All that table had a bunch of stuff on it. And when I remove the stuff, that's what's left, all the residue. And all of the sculptures that I have on my wall, I'm still restoring them. Quite a nightmare. So I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to come back to it because this is a fun little story. It's called But Am I? And this is a picture of me as a child. And you can see on the dress, it has this repetitive text on it that says, I am a good girl, I am a good girl. My mom got me this dress, and she put me in it and took me to like Sears or something to go get one of these children's photos. And then when I got home, my dad came home from work, and he was kind of teasing me about the dress. And I got bent out of shape, took my mom's pinking shears, which are if you sew, they're like really jagged scissors. And I went down in the basement and I cut off one of my pigtails. So then I had really short hair after that, but I was just upset. So I created this this painting because I was kind of laughing at the whole situation. At the time, it was rather traumatizing for everyone, but I'm lighting a match. And so the idea is like, I am a good girl, but am I? Right? So when this whole thing blew up, this painting was on my easel. And the irony was not lost on me that it's like she's like the fire starter. It was really creepy. So this is, this is New Year's Eve, and I'm like, I can't believe this is the painting that is on my easel, and that's what I was working on at the time. Okay, so after the fire, moving forward to March, I I had a residency with the Joan Mitchell Center, and the very first painting I decided to create was again holding two thoughts at one time and creating this skull that's on fire with flowers burning out of it. So the idea that fire, oftentimes when it burns things down, it fertilizes and it creates an area for things to grow and renew. Here's some details so you can kind of see the painting. I'm working in acrylics, but I love making them appear like oils. So, and I really got into painting the flames and how colorful and beautiful, again, something that was so traumatic or something that I really dislike, and trying to find a way to make it beautiful. So here is the final result of it. It's called homeostasis. And homeostasis, I was swimming a lot at the time. And one of my favorite things about being in a pool, and especially in Texas, is when the temperature of the water is exactly the same temperature as that of the air. And so you can't feel your body at all, just float in nowhere. And it feels like homeostasis. It's just a perfect balance. Here's the price of entry. This was kind of me being human. The idea that just to be human, there is a price. And that price often comes with both beauty and trauma at the same time. The in between, there's a boat with maps on it, made of maps, and she's underwater and the boat's on fire. And I felt very much like this for a prolonged period of time, just trying to find my footing and where am I going to be, and who am I going to be? Like, what's next? Because it's like another reinvention. In a sense, I didn't move out of Houston, but part of Houston moved out of me after my studio got bombed. Then I got back from France and with my art group and created Montmartre in Spring. And there was this man there that was playing this instrument with a cat on his shoulder, the accordion with the cat on his shoulder. And I really started getting into this maximalist painting, repetition, tweaking things, making things that felt like they were there but weren't there, and trying to create beauty and some lyrical visuals with it. Here's another one that I did. This is a photo on the left-hand side that I took in a flea market, which I love. It's just so bizarre. And I felt like no one's going to believe it until they see the actual image, that I wasn't just throwing aliens and ET in there. So that's my photo. And then the painting is on the right-hand side and bringing these flowers back in and beauty melting, the flowers melting. This is after a trip to Oregon and the long walk home, and just this iridescence of the trees there are so spectacular, and it just feels so quiet and cozy. Here is one after school. These kids were climbing a tree. I think they were cut in school. I don't think it was after school. So I did the drawing on the left, and then I did a painting. On the road again, this piece was at the airport. And this is in the show, by the way. All these maximalist paintings are in the show currently at the Jung Center. And I was behind friends that were driving, and I was sitting in the back seat, and I took this photo of them, and I wanted to create kind of the feeling of being in a new area, what it feels like this is kind of what it feels like to me to travel. So it's very joyful, and you don't know where you're going. We'll just see where it's headed. And I did throw my cat in there because paintings are better with cats. Reunion. So as the stories over the past 2 years, so much tragedy happening internationally, as these families were being reunited, there was one that really captured my soul, and I had to paint it. And this is kind of me painting that using some of my design work in it. And then I came to what's next. This is the newest of the new work, and here's a tarot card reader, and she is deciding what's next. She knows, but we don't know. And you can see there's some references to my other paintings going on in the cards that have already been laid down. Now, I purposefully left the back of that red card blank because I knew that I wanted to make prints of this. And this kind of carries everything in it. It is the French, it has the kind of subversives in it. It has the carrying two things at one time, like finding a way to be comfortable. And kind of, she has this glimmer in her eyes, being comfortable with not knowing what's happening, with change, and also wanting to know. It kind of carries all these things. And then the beauty of the flowers are in there. And it also has my vanitas that I love so much because there's a candle burning out, right? So, this isn't going to last forever. The things change and we won't be here, so there's that. But the back of that card, I used Sumi ink that I had gotten when I was in Japan. I have not made any maximalist paintings from my trip to Japan last year yet. But I did want to use this ink, which is really fun. And I painted the tree of life on the back of this card. So a friend gave me a book on the tree of life, which was on the Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism. And there's some incredible, incredible charts and graphs that are from Babylonian time period. They're just beautiful. So I became very enamored with the idea of the tree of life, which also lines up with the chakras. And it's just the symbolism is incredible. In any case, that is on a print where I hand painted the tree of life on all of the prints. Okay, and then this one is called Cult. And this is kind of my response over the past couple of years on social media. There's just been so much, I just feel like it's just evolving into such an ugly place. And this is also, notice, my self-portrait from the very first painting. And I felt like I can't point fingers because I first have to take responsibility for what I do as well. And the idea of like trying on these different versions of stories that I read about in the news, or what I think I'm going to be in my present day person. And the idea of these wind up teeth, I'd been wanting to do these wind up chatter teeth in a painting for a long time, and I couldn't figure out how to make them work. So I like the idea that they just grow on trees. Like these stories or these personas or these um, theories that people have, that I have, they're everywhere and they just grow on trees and you can pick them off of a tree and stick them in your mouth. So the idea is like, what do you really believe at the end of the day? And so I ask myself that often. And so that's where this came from, because I do think that we are all in a cult. We're all in a variety of cult. They don't just exist on compounds where people dress in long dresses and don't brush their hair and wear beads. But instead, everything can be a cult. There's a cult of art and in cult culture. So we're all in something. And so the idea of looking at myself and really taking a hard look at what my beliefs are and hopefully coming out to be a better person as a result of it. Um, this is one of the newer maximalist pieces. I think this might be the newest one of my maximalist pieces. And this is called Tree of Life Spring. Again, the Tree of Life idea, the concept, the map is laid out. The idea that each one of these circles is a region of rebirth or nature. So flowers and birds. I got a raven in the bottom there. At the top, there's an angel with its wings covering its eyes and it's growing flowers. But the expression on the angel is one of kind of shock and awe. And then that's an egret bird on the right-hand side of the painting, our right-hand side. It's white. It's one of the most ancient birds that is not a dinosaur. It still exists today. And then the Hebrew words at the top, Amet, these are the words that in Prague, there was a man named Rabbi Lowenstein, and this is his grave on the bottom left. I just visited it a few weeks back. And in order to protect the Jewish quarter in Prague, he created a mud monster called the Golem. And on the Golem, he wrote this Hebrew word, Amet, to create him. And the Golem rose up and it started protecting people, but then it couldn't tell who to protect and who not to protect. And it got very confused. And so it just started attacking everything and everyone. So the rabbi had to go back to his own creation and erase the aleph, the first letter, all the way on the right-hand side. And when you erase, and Amet, by the way, translates full word, it translates to truth. But when you erase the first letter, it just says met, which means death. And that's how he killed his monster. So he created this great thing in order for like a good reason, but then he realized it just got out of control and he had to kill it. He had to reconcile that it wasn't a good thing and take responsibility and control of that. And I just think that it makes for a really cool film noir, but it also makes for a really beautiful story that I really appreciate. In this, you can also see there is a nod to technology. I'm definitely down the rabbit hole with AI, and that stripe down the left side where it kind of lines up, it kind of doesn't, and it looks very technological. That's kind of my ode to that. So I've got ancient mixed with contemporary and even future. So now these maximalist paintings aren't just about how I'm putting the paint down and the rhythm and movement of the paint, and the mapping of it, but now it's starting to create this kind of culmination of time and space for me. And this is the final painting I'll share with you. It's called Meditation. And this again is my little guy who's my self-portrait. He's kind of like my, I don't know, he's my mascot, I guess. And this is kind of what it feels like for me when I try to do traditional meditation, like when I cross my legs and I, hold my palms up and I close my eyes. I cannot meditate like that. I just feel like I have all these little fun little monsters around and they're holding peace flags. And it's like, but I'm so distracted at the same time. But I did find my meditation in painting. And I'll leave this with you before I'll take questions if anyone has any. Um, And I've been telling my students this, that to master something doesn't mean that you are the best of something. It merely means that when you are creating your craft, whatever that is, whether you're practicing medicine or you're painting, whatever it is, that you forgive yourself when you make an error, when you make a mistake, because the mistake becomes part of your process. And so instead of going, "Oh man, that sucks," or "That's terrible," instead of doing that, and you bring it on board and it's like, oh, okay, it's an opportunity to fix that. I'm going to go deeper into it. And so I found that as I'm starting to understand painting on a certain level, I no longer get emotional about painting at all. I just enjoy it and move forward with the process. And my mistakes, it sounds cheesy, but kind of become the strengths of it. I never like, I used to get frustrated and leave paintings behind, walk away from them, maybe come back to them, maybe not, just stop painting them. But now it's like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to keep moving forward. And I feel like that's the best that all of us can do is just keep moving forward. So that's my personal story. And you are more than welcome to join me at my artist talk and see all of these works in person on Saturday from 2 to 3:30 at the Young Center. It's free to attend. And you can also see my website, which is not great right now. I've been in the middle of transferring it over to a new platform for a year now, but I will get there. But I am upkeeping my Instagram accounts, which are those two things. Laura Makes Art and Spector Art Studio. Okay, so that's that, and I'll come back to see if anyone has any questions. Okay, any questions for me? Let's see, I'll go into the chat, or you can ask them directly. Feel free to take off your mute and ask if anyone has any. No. Okay, great. Well, thank you so very much for being here today. And feel free to reach out and contact me if you'd like. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing all of you coming up. Let me see. We have Dina Brodsky coming up as the next lecturer, the next speaker. That's on November 14th. And I'll just mention real quick, Dina Brodsky is a phenomenal artist. She has on Instagram, she is, I think, in the top 10 of artists who is, oh, I see a question coming up. And she, top 10 of artists, meaning she has like over 1 million followers there. And she's going to be coming to talk to us about her miniaturist paintings. I see a question here. Someone wrote, I've read that Rothko believed there was a spiritual dimension to his minimalism, if that's the right word. Yeah, it is. Is there a spiritual dimension to your maximalism? And if so, how would you describe it? Yeah, I think that there is. I don't know if I am smart enough to be able to explain what that is. I think I'm still learning what that is. I have never really considered myself much of a spiritual person, but I feel like it's coming out more and more often these days. Um, and I think that the further I'm going into these images of tree of life, uh, and mysticism, I think it's drawing me in. I don't know quite what it is yet, so I think I'm still developing it, very much like developing the paintings. And I think over time, with a dozen more of these paintings, I will better understand it. I do understand now that it is my form of meditation because I'm unable to sit still and close my eyes, but I am completely able to zone out and zone into making the paintings. So I think that that might be the closest to it. I hope that helps. Any other questions for me? Okay, but I see the Q&A. Let's see. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you at Dina's talk. And hopefully I'll see you at the gallery at the Young Center. Have a wonderful day.